Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. Thank you for joining us. We have a lot to get into tonight, including the Pirates, who finally won a series after losing 7 in a row. They beat the Red Sox, but is it doable for them to get back in the playoff picture? And what's happened to Paul Skenes? We'll get into those topics, but the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they do at quarterback and beyond. Here to talk about it, Will Graves, Associated Press, Wanda's best
Shout out Wanda. Beard's gone, but Wanda's back.
And you have less hair. I noticed you cut it short to the scalp. I like that. Below him, looking very retro, is the word I would say. Mike DeCourcy, the now retired columnist from the Sporting News, but still can see him on the Big Ten Network. And across from him, Ray Fittipaldo of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, who does a great job covering that team. And Ray, I want to start with you. We saw 3 quarterbacks play, and they all played well, 27 of 33 combined. There were those who thought they'd not keep 3. Now that this has happened, if you believed that before, would you now say maybe there is a chance for 4 quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, Bob, after the way they all played the other night, and Aaron Rodgers, of course, did not play, but I think there is a distinct possibility that they could keep 4. But I'll also go back to 2019, Bob. Mason Rudolph was in his 2nd year. Josh Dobbs was in his 3rd year. Both of them played well. They ended up trading Josh Dobbs for a 5th-round pick. So do not rule out a trade. I think a trade is a possibility as well. But yes, keeping 4 is a distinct possibility.
I mean, you know, they're all those guys showed, all 3 of them showed that they should be on somebody's roster, come August 31st, right, the day after cut day. Whether that's going to be in Pittsburgh, I'm not sold on. I think there's going to be injuries that are going to pop up. They're going to need bodies in other areas, and having a 4th quarterback on the roster is going to feel like a luxury. I think to Ray's point, there's going to be quarterbacks that get hurt. And if you're looking around, Mason Rudolph is, look, he's a vet. You can trust him. He's not going to light the world on fire, but he's not going to lose you games either. I think it's more likely that they go with 3 for variables beyond their play. Like, I think their play is going to be probably okay. But I just think that there's a lot of other things happen, and I just think it's not going to be 4 when we get done with after cut day. I don't think it's going to be 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah, Bob, for me, it's just the utility of 4 quarterbacks. What's it good for? The future, perhaps, yes, but isn't your job as the evaluators, as the general manager, as the coach, as the quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, to decide which of the 2 young quarterbacks has the future, if either of them does? Is it Drew Aller? Is it Will Howard? I think at this point you're going to have to make that decision. The one way in which 4 quarterbacks becomes a possibility, and thank you, gentlemen, for leaving this open, is injury. And it could be something serious, or it could be something not so severe, but something that allows you to keep one of them on IR and have all 4 available. But other than that, I don't see any utility to having 4 quarterbacks on an NFL roster unless one of them is Cordell Stewart, and none of them is.
Well, I do think, though, it is, Ray, a little bit different story here. Much like Cleveland had to keep 4, they drafted 2. They were still searching for someone. Right. The Steelers, after Rodgers, will be searching for someone, and if those 2 guys give you evidence that maybe they could be one of them, right, I think you'd want to keep them around. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, Mason Rudolph is going to be a free agent at the end of the season as well. So, yeah, I think Will Howard and Drew Aller are playing for 2027. The fact that both performed so well in that game on Thursday night is very encouraging. The coaches are excited about where they are. Now, yes, you do have to weigh in that Aller was going against 13 defenders. That's obviously a part of it, but he looked really smooth, Bob. And I go back to rookie minicamp. They had to break him down. They had to break him of bad habits. And where he is now is like night and day difference compared to where he was in late April, early May.
I mean, look, if I'm them and we get to the end, if those 2 young guys continue to play relatively well over the last couple of games, I think you make the decision that I would make, as much as it would hurt, because he's been such a good dude for so long. I would, Mason would be the guy, that would be on the outs, because we know what we have with him. He's played, he's had plenty of opportunities throughout his career, had great moments and some not so great moments. I would say we get to it, keep the 2 young guys, and if Rodgers gets hurt, and remember he did miss a little bit of time last year, then at least you have some idea on what's behind him as you go into 27. Whereas if you keep Mason and let's say Aaron gets hurt and Mason ends up playing 2 or 3 games, you're in the same spot next March that you were this March, that you were the March before that, and the March before that. where you don't really know who your quarterback of the future is. I think if keep the young guys, and if Rodgers gets hurt, at least you get an opportunity to see what you have.
Well, I look at it, they didn't bring Aaron Rodgers back to worry about 2027. It's for 2026, and Mason Rudolph is the clear number 2. He's proven what he's capable of doing as a backup quarterback, and that's about as much as anybody in the league is going to do with that position. There may be a few here or there that are better, but there aren't many as a number 2. And then you decide, is it Aller, is it Howard? I thought Howard looked fine on Thursday night, did a nice job, but Aller was the one that opened your eyes because he wasn't supposed to be able to do the thing, or he hasn't done the things that he did on Thursday night, being precise, being sharp, hitting players in stride, having the great touch and feel. I know it wasn't against all-pro type players, but neither was it when he was in college was he going against all-pro players, and he couldn't do those things then.
Yeah, good point. Well, if this does happen, if they keep 4, one of the things you're going to look at is, okay, who loses a job? So, Will, I want to ask you about Caleb Johnson. He got in late in the game. He doesn't seem to have, the opportunity that maybe he was looking for with some of the guys they've brought in. Is he an afterthought with them? Is he one of the guys who may be, without a job if they decide to keep 4, or even if they don't decide to keep 4?
I mean, look, it is it would be unusual for this team in particular, but most teams, but this team in particular, to move on from a 3rd-round pick after a season. But it seems like from the second that we've had regime change here, obviously, but really from the second that kickoff got away from him against Seattle, like it has been, he is not. I've not seen the response that you would think you would get from a young guy, right? And especially this year. Ray and I have been up at camp, and he is not noticeable in any way, shape, or form. So it certainly seems like he's an afterthought, and this coaching staff has no, they have no loyalty to him at all. Like, he's not one of their guys.
Yeah, after the game, I thought, okay, well, maybe Caleb Johnson's time is coming on Friday night against the Jets or in the preseason finale in Buffalo. But we show up at practice today, Bob, and, he's getting reps with Eli Heidenreich. He's the 5th or 6th guy in. So in the end, this might be a scheme fit thing. I think Caleb Johnson might have been a good scheme fit for Arthur Smith's offense. And in the end, he's probably not a good scheme fit for Mike McCarthy's offense.
When that game opens up on Thursday night and he's not in the starting lineup, that should have been alarms going off for him because there was no reason for him not to be. The 2 starters, whichever one is the starter, those guys were not playing, and we all knew that, and he's not out there. That's big trouble for Caleb Johnson. I don't see any real life there in terms of his ability to make this team. I thought about it today where they trying to sneak him onto the practice squad, and I don't think there's anything like that going on. I just don't think that this coaching staff thinks he's an asset to the organization and looks ready to move on.
When we come back, we're going to talk about Paul Skenes, but later we're going to get back to football and talk about Joey Porter Jr. because now he's unsigned, and a guy like Keanu Benton has been signed. We'll get into that, but next, Paul Skenes. What's going on with him? That's next, right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, welcome back. We continue #1 Cochran Sports Showdown talking about Paul Skenes, who was supposed to pitch today, pushed back until Wednesday. Mike DeCourcy, it's hard to imagine, but the bullpen games they've used have been more productive than Skenes' start of late. What's going on, and what do you think? Is there a problem, or is it just maybe fatigue?
Well, I think fatigue is a problem. You can say it's not an injury, but if fatigue affects you to the point where your velocity has completely fallen to below average. I mean, at this point, he's probably either an average to below average major league pitcher in terms of velocity when he was elite a year ago. That to me is, whether it's something, you could say it's not an injury because it's not a ligament or this or that, but if you are falling that far and you want to call it fatigue, call it what you want. But that's a serious issue for him, and I respect that he's continued to pitch through it to the extent that he has. Obviously missed his turn on Sunday, but will hopefully pitch at the middle of the week. But there's a real problem there, and it's evident in the numbers. There was a great chart that was produced about his 98-plus mile-an-hour fastballs in year 1 and year 2 compared to year 3 when there are almost none. It's a shame that it's happened, but any concern about his future really, that he should be driving that. It shouldn't be the Pirates saying, well, we want to protect him for 2027. No, if he needs protection, it should be coming from him.
The concerning thing to me about Paul Skenes, what made him such a great pitcher last season, yes, the overpowering velocity is a big part of it, but he showed command and he showed the ability to throw 4, 5, 6 pitches. I'm wondering now, okay, where is the command? Your velocity might be down, but you're also not commanding that 94, 95 mile per hour fastball, and your off speed isn't as effective. So for me going forward, I think it's great. Give him a break now. If he comes back Wednesday and he pitches well, maybe you're onto something there. But to me, the fact that there's 3 things that are wrong with him now, that's a bit concerning.
I mean, let's zoom out a little bit. I mean, this is a guy that, in the middle of May had 3 or 4 starts where he took like perfect games into the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th inning. And he was throwing, he wasn't throwing 100, he wasn't throwing 99, he was throwing 98, 97. Now that 97, 98, 97 has become 96, 95. What happens there is that little fraction, it doesn't seem like a lot, but like now at-bats are getting extended because guys are fouling off pitches. They're drawing walks to Ray's point because of the ability to extend at-bats. That being said, I mean, look, I've been around this guy. I have a ton of respect for the way that he carries himself. I have a ton of respect for, he respects the game. He respects his own talent. He's working his tail off. I wonder, how much, I mean, if we're going to look for things to blame, I mean, look, they made a pitching coach change last year. Look, he came up, Oscar Marin was a pitching coach. He was a rookie of the year. Second year, he was a Cy Young winner. They switched and went to Bill Murphy. And some pitchers like Braxton Ashcraft have taken a step forward, and some pitchers like Mitch and Paul have taken a step back. That being said, I'm confident, that Paul is going to figure something out. To be honest with you, when the velocity was down, I was like, well, he's thinking about being healthy longer, and he is trying to become a pitcher instead of a thrower, right? And I think we saw some of that. I think to Ray's point, one of the big problems is like that splinker, he can't throw it for strikes, and guys aren't swinging at it. And last year it was such a devastating weapon for him, and right now it's not at his disposal. And because of that, it's one of the reasons that he is not the guy that he was his first 2 years.
All right, that's an interesting point about the pitching coach. Real quick, I want to ask you, we have less than a minute, but I want a percentage, Mike. What percentage chance do the Pirates have of making the playoffs? They're 6.5 back. They got to hurdle 5 different teams. What do you think?
Well, right now, the teams that are in the final playoff positions are 9 games over 500. The Pirates have spent exactly 0 days this season at 9 games over 500. So I'd put it at slightly above 0. Let's say 5%.
All right. Guys?
6, 7?
Is that still a thing? They have something new there, don't they?
I mean, look, I think it's over. Not just because, to Mike's point, they haven't been a good team. They've been a pretty average team all season. That 9-game road trip, 3 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Padres, 3 against the Cardinals. They would have to put together a 25-10, 25-11 finish to the season to get to that wild card spot. And it's just, you look at that stretch of the schedule, and I just think that it's just not doable. All
right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, Joey Porter Jr., he wants a new contract. A lot of people have gotten him, not him. We'll debate that coming up next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Yesterday, another cornerback got paid. Devon Witherspoon of Seattle, $132 million, $101 guaranteed, $33 per year. Ray, where does this put Joey Porter, knowing that Keanu Benton just got paid, and before him it was another guy who's not a starter in Nick Herbig? Yeah,
it's interesting to me. The Steelers are betting on the future with Darnell Washington, with Keanu Benton, even with Nick Herbig. These guys are going to be starters, full-time starters down the road, and they already know what they have in Joey Porter, and there seems to be a little bit of hesitancy. I don't know so much about Joey Porter Jr., but more so about, okay, this cornerback market with guys getting $33 million a year, maybe that's, a step too far for us. So I still think this gets done, Bob, but we're still, 29, 30 days away from the opener. I think it could go right up to the deadline.
I mean, the cost of business keeps going up. And I mean, look, I was doing Sports Call with Rich on Friday night, and right when that broke, and we're going over the numbers, and I'm like, I think in real time on air, I'm like, Keanu his bag is how big? I mean, I was like stunned that he got that much money. And it's not that he doesn't deserve it. I mean, good for him. But if I'm Joey's agent, I'm like, they've paid 3 guys that are not starters, especially Herbig and Keanu, like, a lot of money. And this is a guy that is more proven. I mean, look, Joey's taken more snaps. Joey's got more experience. Joey's taken, a bigger step in his career, during his first 3 years than these guys have. So, I think it might get done. Like, this is the thing, though. Like, if the Steelers, the waiting has cost them money in the end. And let's be honest, like, what the number is going to be this year, we're going to be like, oh, my God, it's 4 years, $120 million. But when the salary cap is $50 million higher in 3 years, and his percentage hit is going to depending on how they structure it, is going to be lower, and they're not going to have to pay a quarterback in theory, right? So I would why not just pay him? And
Maybe not. If they
you're
go out
not
and get a
paying
free
that better
agent quarterback, they may have to pay him $35 to $45 million a year if they don't find someone. That whole thing's a tricky puzzle to make. It is.
I still suspect that most of the hesitance here has been on the part of Porter's agent waiting for deals like this one. $33 million. Okay, now we know where we are. Can we get to 30? For instance, I know the last time Ray and I were on the show, he posited it was around 27 that he thought that Porter could get, but that was before this deal. Now it seems like it'd be closer to 30, and I think that's pretty much what they're looking for. They want to know, okay, what are the absolute best cornerbacks worth? Joey's not that far from it, so what can we do? I really believe that this hesitance has been on the part of the Porter because, look, if you're willing to give Keanu Benton $18 million a year, a deal I still can't quite figure out, then I absolutely think they're willing to give Joey Porter what he's worth. It's just a question of what that number is.
Ray, I want to ask you about, is it more guaranteed money? Is it average money? Does he want to be the guy who say, I make average $34 million a year, but my guarantee's only $80? What is it?
Yeah, I think for all these guys, the guaranteed money is the big thing. In recent years, the Steelers have gone to guaranteeing 2 years for T.J. Watt. So they did something similar for Nick Herbig, although not quite 2 years. I think Joey's probably looking for something in that range. So, yeah, if you want to do $30 million a year, you're probably looking at $60 million guaranteed. And I think in the end, Will was right. 3-4 years down the line, we'll look back on this, and it won't be a bad deal if it gets done.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, interesting debate coming up next year. Who makes the Hall of Fame in the class of 2027? We have guys who are coming in for the first time, like Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown. We'll get into that and more as we continue right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. It is time to talk peace, love, and pricing power because car stock is going on now at all #1 Cochran locations. Get out-of-sight markdowns on more than 1,500 pre-owned vehicles, a minimum of $5,000 off overstock new inventory, and the lowest lease specials and APRs of this summer. Don't space out on this opportunity. Shop car stock offers on thousands of vehicles at Cochran.com. Do it right now. All right, so we have an interesting thing. There are a lot of holdovers in the Hall of Fame voting potential coming up for 2027, but there's some newcomers. Adrian Peterson, Gronk is going to be there. Richard Sherman's going to be there, and Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown. So, Mike DeCourcy, of these two, Roethlisberger, I think it's slam dunk, but what about Antonio Brown? How would you break that down?
Well, I would bring out the Post-Gazette from, I believe it was January 2019, the day after the Cincinnati Bengals against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and just show that newspaper and end the debate. He absolutely does not belong because he did not play in that game and he wasn't injured. And so that, to me, Antonio Brown has no business anywhere near Canton. I know Terrell Owens made it and probably, from my estimation, didn't have any business either. I'd put Hines Ward in place of either of them. Ben Roethlisberger should absolutely be in there, though.
Yeah, I mean, AB is one of those cases of like self-immolation. I mean, like Mike's thinking about the work of our friends at the Post-Gazette that day in 2019. I'm thinking a little more recently his meltdown at the end of his career with the Bucs. I mean, I think how many guys in the Hall of Fame have quit on not one team but two teams? Like none, right? I just think it's over. And it's a shame because talent-wise, production-wise, had he been able to like keep his stuff together for 3 more years, he probably would be a slam dunk Hall of Famer. I think Ben gets in, and the people that are pulling for Eli or whatever can just go pound sand. Sorry.
Yeah, listen, we're saying Ben's a shoo-in. I think he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. To me, Drew Brees got in on the first ballot, so Ben should. The AB comparison, if you look at his numbers, 2013 to 2018, you can make an argument he was as good as Jerry Rice was for a 5 or 6 year period. The difference was Jerry Rice did it for longer, and he also didn't have the meltdowns that AB had at the end of his career. So unfortunately for AB, I think he's going to have to wait a while. But in the end, at some point, 10, 15 years down the road, I think he still could get in.
Another guy who's waiting is Hines Ward. He's been waiting for quite some time. I remember Bettis took 5 years to get it. Alan Faneca took quite a bit. So, Mike, does he ever get it? I think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I've been watching the Steelers since 1970. And Hines Ward is the best all-around football player to play for the Steelers in that time. Look, Joe Green's is the greatest Steeler, don't get me wrong, but Hines Ward is the best all-around football player. When he was on special teams, he was a demon. As a receiver, he ran with the football, even threw a couple. He just all the blocking. He's just played football. And why that's not appreciated by the Pro Football Hall of Fame voters, especially when I heard Peter King talk about this, the great Peter King of Sports Illustrated and NBC Sports, stood up and said that he believed that Hines belonged in, and he advocated for him all the time, and people still don't listen.
Well, look, as somebody who grew up outside the market, I'll make a comparison. I grew up obviously in the D.C. suburbs. Art Monk, when he retired, was the NFL's all-time leading receiver, and he had to wait, I want to say, 8 or 9 years, and it drove me crazy because Michael Irvin got in before him, right? It drove me insane for various reasons, and I think Hines is sort of in that category that Art Monk was in, because he was just a great player, but not a guy that commanded attention.
Ray, real quick.
Yeah, I think Hines Ward, his body of work, both as a blocker and a receiver and a Super Bowl MVP, I think he will get in. I think the Veterans Committee is likely his best shot.
All right, we'll take a break right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Good night. We'll see you next week.